Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country. I'm speaking to you today from the lands of the Kulin Nation. I would like to recognise their ongoing connection to the land and value their unique contribution to Australian society. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and the elders from other communities who may be watching today. I myself am a non-Indigenous researcher, and I live and work on the lands of the Kulin Nation. I arrived in Australia, almost 20 years ago. I flew into Townsville from Johannesburg, very excited to take on my first clinical position. At the time, Townsville was short on allied health professionals, hence importing me in, and my introduction to the working world was a flurry of activity. Not long after arriving, I was booked for my first trip to Palm Island. Palm Island is home to the Munbara people, and it's located about 65 kilometres northeast of Townsville. To get there, I boarded a very small chartered plane, maximum 10 seats aside from the pilot. All my fellow travellers looked much like me, young, European, holding various types of professional equipment. I don't know if you've ever been lucky enough to fly very low over parts of northern Queensland. They say powerful images stay in your mind, and for me, I've never forgotten the beauty of that day. I think particularly this year, without the ability to travel easily, I have often thought back to the blue of the ocean and the green islands dotted below us. I tested 10 children that day, all with severe hearing loss due to chronic ear infections, a condition very common in Indigenous communities. On Palm Island, almost 75% of the children will experience chronic ear infections at some or other point. Without effective treatment, schooling and language is inevitably affected. Only 12% of children on Palm Island will go on to complete high school. Although antibiotics are available at the GP clinic on the island, all these children would need specialist care. And that care is only available on 3 visits per year. At the end of the day, my fellow travellers packed up our bags and went home. They had similar experiences to me. We would do what we could on the day, but always flew back out again. And there was no opportunity to build relationships, to build trust, and to build continuity of care. It was this experience which really got me thinking about diversity in healthcare and how this could impact on the quality of healthcare provision, particularly for Indigenous communities. Did you know that only 0.5% of doctors are Indigenous and only 0.4% of allied health professionals? In real terms, that's less than 400 doctors, 50 speech pathologists, 20 dietitians, and 10 optometrists. In 2018, Indigenous enrolments in higher education accounted for approximately 2% of the student population. However, in allied health, Indigenous enrolments accounted for only 1%. So although we have made significant inroads in Indigenous enrolments in higher education over time, for the professions, we are still a long way off from reaching population parity. I was interested in finding out more about the socio-demographic profile of Indigenous learners in allied health professions. I was also curious about what made Indigenous learners choose allied health to study and what their experiences were. These questions were part of a larger project which looked at best practice in the retention and recruitment of Indigenous students into allied health careers. When we compared the socio-demographic profile of Indigenous students with non-Indigenous students in allied health, we found that Indigenous learners differed on several indicators. These indicators made some professions more accessible for Indigenous students than others. For example, the presence of a regional campus and multiple entry points were also correlated with higher numbers of Indigenous students. These findings were supported by qualitative data. We spoke with several Indigenous students and graduates about their experiences, and I'd like to share one of these stories with you today. Kathy is a qualified social worker. She grew up in a small regional community, and her father was part of the stolen generation. Both her parents worked physical labouring jobs to support their family. Kathy completed Year 12 on to enrol at university, but decided to leave after her second semester. She felt far from community, and life took her in a different direction. Whilst raising a young family, Kathy ended up taking several short TAFE qualifications. She chose community services as she didn't have a driver's licence at the time, and it was offered across the road from her. She really enjoyed the experience, and it built up her confidence. So when her daughter enrolled in university sometime later, she decided to join her, enrolling in a social work degree. Her second time at university still wasn't smooth sailing. She was surviving on ab study. She had significant caring responsibilities. She was travelling large distances to campus, and she had no internet at home. She describes relying heavily on the Indigenous support unit, not only for the practical supports they offered, but also as a space to feel welcome and connected. Kathy's story had several similarities to the other graduates that we spoke with. All chose their career path because they wanted to make a difference. All felt a strong sense of responsibility to their family and wider community. And all felt that the sense of belonging and practical supports offered by the Indigenous support units were invaluable in getting them through their studies. What is also striking is that some health professions offered a second chance. So for Kathy, she was able to use her industry experience as well as her previous TAFE qualifications to get credit for her first year of study. However, her choice of degree was quite limited in that there are only a handful of professions which offer this degree of flexibility. Safety and its presence or absence was another strong theme which emerged from the interviews. Safety was something graduates felt was lacking outside of the Indigenous support unit, particularly when out on clinical placement. Many graduates were the only Aboriginal student in their study program, and once employed, surrounded by predominantly white colleagues. Many participants mentioned that working in a predominantly white profession was exhausting at times and did not feel like a safe space to be. Attracting and retaining students into the professions requires cultural safety practices embedded throughout the student experience and is not just the responsibility of the Indigenous support unit. Graduates mentioned small but important gestures which made them feel seen and heard. These could be an acknowledgement from a lecturer, recognition from a peer, or an image of Aboriginal heritage on campus. I would like to share one final story before closing. Layla, an Aboriginal woman studying audiology, shared with me her dream of setting up a mobile clinic and travelling back to her community in Western Australia once she graduated. It is young people such as Layla who can provide a shared cultural experience so important for quality healthcare provision, not just to service Indigenous communities, but also to educate non-Indigenous professionals in providing culturally competent care. Thank you.